cars hit a point where they get used and appreciated and then they become worthless and they get thrown away. But now we're seeing an era of the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, millennium, where they're now being realised as classic cars. I've come here to a real barn in rural Hertfordshire to champion this, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Johnny, why on earth should I care about a Nissan Primera? Well, because this era of Nissan was much greater than most people give it credit for, and this car is far greater than the sum total of its parts, and I want to explain to you why and share with you this particular example, which has been owned from new by the same guy. I'm Jonny Smith, you're watching The Late Break Show. So if you haven't already clicked off this and you've stayed with me, here's a brief history lesson on why you should care about the Nissan Primera GT. Oh, and like and subscribe while you're there. You might as well.
The Primera was built in Britain, and despite its restrained styling always attracting minicab jokes, here was a saloon car, or a hatch, your choice, whose underpinnings led to successes on the racetrack that became the envy of many manufacturers. It started in 1990 with the Primera P10. At the top of the range was the EGT, which Nissan engineers threw all their powers at to make handle, thanks to trick, no expenses spared, multi-link front suspension and independent rear, and go fast, down to the SR20 2-litre twin-cam 16 under the bonnet. No turbo, but an absolute screamer, a legend of a motor. The P11 Primera like this one in the barn launched in '96, the year I passed my driving test, as it happens. But Nissan went racing in British touring car, and they were good. The 135 mile an hour road car's 152 horsepower was pushed way beyond 300, and that amazing chassis ensured the Primera GT pushed itself to the forefront of super touring, what is widely now regarded as the best era of BTCC. Primeras battled on track throughout the 90s, but it was the 99 season when out of 26 races, the GT achieved 13 wins. Nissan won the Manufacturers' Championship, the Team Championship, the Drivers' Championship, and a very handy driver called Neal won the Independent Championship, tussling with the works cars to a first outright win for a privateer. Matt was sponsored by Max Power magazine and would go on to become one of the most successful drivers of tin-top cars in Britain. On track, Primeras were sexy and savage, and on the road, a GT could be pushed and pushed and pushed, but it always hid beneath its sensible suit. The DNA, though, was undeniable. So there you go. Primera GT history lesson over. Back to the barn find.
So Neal, I have just told the audience a sort of what I think a brief history of the Primera GT is, but I know that you probably know more about Primera GTs than I do. And am I right in thinking you bought this when it was pretty much new?
Yeah, it was 5 weeks old.
Was it?
So it was an ex-demonstrator. It had, I think, 1,500 miles on the clock. And yeah, I replaced a P10 Primera with it.
Was that a GT as well?
No, that was a 1.6. I was 21 when I bought this. So
were you?
A long time ago. Come into a little bit of money, went to the garage, and I wanted to buy a brand new 2-litre SLX. And he said, well, how about a GT? And I said, well, I can't afford a GT. And he said, well, I've got an ex-demonstrator here. If you're interested, I can do a deal on it for the same price of a new SLX.
No. What drew you to a Primera GT? Because although it's got a GT name, a lot of people kind of thought it was a bit of a dowdy looking car. And actually, what I tried to say in the intro to this video is the engineering of these was far superior to its looks in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Montego before my first Primera, so
okay.
so yeah, I guess not much difference in terms of dowdy looks there. But
you're a Montego man.
Yes, yeah, I think I've had every engine, every body style, left-hand drive.
Wow. We've had a lot of Montegos on the Late Break Show. So you bought it when it was new. You've still got it. How has it come to be here?
I haven't owned it for its entire life. I had it for about 2.5 years, travelled all over Europe with it, Scotland, and then I got a job with a company car. And my parents knew how much I loved this, so they actually bought it from me.
Okay.
And my mum had it to replace a Citroen AX. She had it until 2013, and my mum wanted a Mini. So my dad said, well, what should we do with this? Can you help me sell it? And I said, well, I'll buy it back. So he said to me, well, I've just put £60 worth of petrol in it. If you give me £60, you can have it back.
Oh my gosh, so that was what, just over a decade ago?
That was 2013.
You bought it back for the price of a tank of fuel?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't bear the fact that it was going to leave the family?
No, I just couldn't bear to see it go. And I'd had other Primeras during that time, but...
Had you? So you'd gone back into the Primera?
Yeah, I've had a number of GTs and a couple of non-GTs and another P10 as well. So
what's the addiction?
I just think that I mean, even now, if you get into a running one, they're so comfortable. I mean, I drive 10 hours down to the south of France and get out the other end and just feel comfortable, no aches or pains. And the handling and just everything about them, I've just always found I get in it and I just feel at home.
And how long has it been in this barn?
So it's been in here since 2017. After I bought it back, I ran it for a couple of months with the slipping clutch.
Right.
Then the MOT was coming to an end, so it was put in underground parking at my grandparents' house until they passed away, and then it was moved here. So that was the last time it ran. It came here on the back of a trailer, and it's sat here ever since.
I just hope that the rodents haven't played with it too much, because
yeah, and there is evidence of rodents around.
Actually, so where I'm stood, there's the mummified remains of I think it's a rat.
Yeah,
it's bloody massive for a rat.
It's big.
We'll talk a bit more. We'll talk more Primeras as we touch the Primera. So the idea here is hopefully we'll have it running today. Who knows? We might be able to make it drive, albeit with a slipping clutch. And although there's no water or electricity on this premises, we have brought enough with us to hopefully give it a clean. So you have to push the wiper away to lift the bonnet, which we'll do. So the heart of the machine then. Remind me again what the name of this engine is?
It's the SR20 DE.
DE, that's
I think it's the capital DE. So the GTs had the more powerful engine with the black rocker covers.
Right.
Whereas the standard 2 litres had the silver rocker covers.
So the GTs obviously have more power.
Yes, they're 150 rather than 128, I think it is.
Obviously there's some nesting material in the wiper panel and the battery tray. There's some nesting material. So I know that the header tank hasn't seemed to hasn't got any coolant in it, but this is full. That's completely full, that radiator. So we could probably put a bit of coolant in there. Yeah,
it's got oil.
It's got oil. It has got oil. Right, let's take these plugs out then and get rid of this just weird, crusty... It is rust. I think it's rust. I don't have any compressed air here, Neil, unless you've got any.
No, I haven't.
I did bring a detailing kit with me. So this is a detailing brush. You're not supposed to use it, but we don't have anything else, so sorry. I'll just make sure I thoroughly clean it before using it on a detail car. If you take a plug out and there's loads of debris, it will fall into the cylinder head.
I think I'll check in here as well. I've brought another air filter. Oh
bloody hell. Oh, it's just disintegrated. Okay, so something's been in there. Oh, we can't start the car with any of that in there because it will just inhale it. By the way, if you're watching this and ever since the intro you thought, hang on a minute, there's other cars in here. Well, there's a 1 Series which is broken, which is also Neal's, a bargain, that he is going to repair apparently. And then under that sheet there is Neal's friend's Dodge Monaco Bluesmobile. from the Blues Brothers replica. We're not going to uncover it because it's not our car, but we'll put a picture on the screen of it if you're interested in the Blues Brothers, which I am. Whether we get it running or not today, what's your plan with this car?
Ultimately, I'd like to get it back on the road. I've just struggled finding someone who's reliable to work on a 90s car. You know, a lot of people, when I put this in the barn, just saw it as a £300 piece of scrap.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be good to hear from someone maybe who knows these cars and who could say, you know, I know where they rust, I know.
And is going to work on it to the standard of a classic car, not an MOT like bodge job. Well, maybe there's someone that can help. I'm sure there is.
Out of the 120 cars or so that I've owned in the last 30 years, pretty much.
You've had over 120 cars?
Yeah.
Wow, that is
probably
impressive.
my favourite car.
Is it?
Yeah. So.
Because you said that the way this drives is it's got fantastic driving position. The handling is sublime.
Yeah.
And those are the things which people would never know until they've been in one.
No.
So if they just judge it by the way it looks.
Yeah, and I've done track days not in this particular one, but in another one I had, and you can get lift off oversteer like in the old 205 GTIs and stuff.
Can you?
Yeah, they're very balanced.
I know someone that is responsible for making these quite famous, Neal, who is multiple British touring car champion and actually probably one of the most successful British touring car drivers of all time. He made the Primera famous, arguably, back in the 90s. And I had a chance to give him a call when I found out that I was going to come and see Neal with this.
Hi, my name's Matt Neal, three-time British touring car champion. I've had a 30-year career racing in many countries all around the world and numerous different cars. But there's one special car that really stands out for me, and that was the super touring spec Nissan Primera P11. And for me, it launched me into the big time with a big race at Bathurst, 1,000-kilometre race down in Australia in '98. And then I was famed for winning 250 grand prize for one race win in '99, which catapulted me to the front and catapulted everyone with us to the front. And then what a lot of people don't know is I also won the last ever race, international race to super touring regulations at Estoril in Portugal in the P11 Primera as well. So it's a special thing. I've driven numerous cars, Porsches, Ferraris, everything, you can name it. But if there's one special to my heart, it's got to be the P11 Primera. It was a no holes barred, no expense spared, they were £500,000 to build back in the day, 25 years ago. So they are a real jewel, and it was like putting on a silk shirt. And someone sent me a picture the other day, which I've still got on my desk here, and I'll show you, which brings back some of the memories of when we were running with Max Power & Co. So even off the track, we had some good memories as well. But on the track, it was the car to have, and a real special one for me.
Neal's cleaned up the air filter and is going to put a fresh air filter in it, top the coolant up, put a battery on it. And once we've checked the plugs, we will go for a turnover of the engine actually, with no compression like we normally do. We might rock it forwards and backwards with it in gear, just to see if that alternator's seized. And this is just a reminder of the fact that barn finds don't have to be glamorous exotic cars. You know, this is a rare car now, and for its era it was a really successful car, both in motorsport and, you know, as a capable road car. So don't ever think that barn finds have to be sexy, because they don't. Not saying that Primera GTs aren't sexy, just so you know. Feels wrong. Ah, you're all right. There you go, you little slimline bastards. Right, so that's one out. It's like hook a duck, basically, for spark plugs down a deep well. Ah, there you go. You could do with a slightly larger tub, I would say. So all the plugs are out. New air filter in, battery's about to go on, coolant's in, there's oil in it. So I think what we'll do now is pump the tyres up, and then we can rock it to and fro in second or third gear, check whether or not that alternator's seized, and then we can put a battery on it and turn it over with no compression to start with. I'm not going to use this today because I'm not feeling so well, so he's got a compressor, so I'm just going to cop out, just use an electric compressor. Just this once. Just this once. So, we're not using the compressor, we're actually going to go back to the old plunge pump because technology's let us down again. The cigarette lighter in that car doesn't work, or the switch in this is faulty, or something. And people say, Johnny, why don't you just bring a compressor and make your life easier? Because it doesn't make my life easier. This is no technology. It will work. It will work. Right, time to stick a battery on, I reckon, Neil.
Yep.
And I must say at this point, Neal has his own YouTube channel. I will now pass you over to Neal because he can promote it.
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, it's Neal's Cars, Aviation and Travel, which has got a lot of car content.
Yeah.
Mostly car content. There's some aviation stuff.
I'll put it on screen right now. And if you want to follow the story of this car beyond this video, go to subscribe to him because he'll carry on this story. And hopefully, within a year, got to be under a year,
Hopefully, yeah.
this thing will be mint and back on the road.
We're going
Right,
for
do
this.
you want
I'm going to hold this down because
Yes,
that's the alarm for the... If we just put it on and then I can just see if the remote works.
Okay, where's the alarm siren, just so my ears know?
There's two on this. There's one in the boot and there's, I think, the horn.
Great. Oh, the horn's right next to my knees.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay. No
Just see.
sound.
I don't want to let go of this until it's been unlocked.
Okay, so
maybe
do you
maybe unlock it with the key and see...
Right, it's unlocked. You don't want me to blip anything.
It doesn't... Yeah, I thought the central locking would work, but only other option is to put the key in the ignition, see if the ignition turns on, I guess.
No, no lights.
There's not muck on the positive lead, is there, inside? That might
Let's have a
be...
look.
Oh, there's
Okay,
the
so
spark.
we've got a crack now. Right. So I think I know what it was. There's a sleeve on this positive, and I think it had come off. It was just stopping the contact from being made, I think.
Now the indicators are working with the remote locking. Yeah.
Oh, the remote. Great. Right. Good. I'm starting to get a bit nervous. Are you confident with the fuel that's in it?
I think we might need to put some more fuel in because I think it's completely empty.
So what we've got 10 litres.
Yeah.
You want to put like 5 in the tank. Keep 5 for here just in case.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to rock it first to see whether
The
we can see
alternator's
any movement
seized.
on there? Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. That's entirely seized. It's either stuck in the trenches it's made. So what we could do, if you want, we could attach it to a tow rope and just give it a tug anyway, which will break the theoretically uncrack the brakes, but also ascertain that we've got movement in the engine. Yeah?
Yeah, let's do that.
Right, we've got a gallon of fuel in it, and we're leaving the plugs out, but we're going to leave the fuel system connected, see if it feels free, and then maybe put the plugs back in. I mean, it sounds like I'm hearing cracking.
Yeah, it's definitely spark there.
Glorious! I can smell fuel. It might be because you've spilt some down the side of the car, but I think what we'll do is we'll stick the plugs in ASAP.
Yep.
Anyway, you don't want to watch me putting all these spark plugs back in because that's boring. Have a watch of this. A chap called David Twohig, a friend of mine and a seasoned automotive design engineer who was responsible for the rebooted Alpine A110, for leading the Renault Sport team and the original Zoe project. But before all of that, David worked at Nissan on this very car.
Hey Johnny, just been watching the videos. Fantastic job. So happy you've unearthed this Primera. I should probably introduce myself to the viewers. My name's Dave Twohig. I used to work at Nissan, and actually back in the day I was lucky enough to work on this very car that Johnny's been unearthing for us. I also write these days for the intercooler, or as Johnny and Richard Porter would have it, the trouser snake. And I'm super proud of the work we did on these cars back in the day. In fact, I'm so proud that I've kept this box of shizzle for over 25 years, which dates back to that time, and it's a bit of a treasure trove of Primera bits and pieces. So let's have a look. First thing, copy of the auto car from July 1996 when it cost £1.80, would you believe? And in the middle, center spread, the launch of this vehicle. So the P11 Primera in that fantastic bronze color. Bunch of details in here, gets better. An instrument pack from that very car, 0 mileage, and I'm really proud of this one because back in the day, as a Sprague engineer, I actually designed this. I was a Sparky in Nissan at the time, and this was one of the very first bits I was responsible for, including this little trip computer down here. Back in the early 90s, this was high-tech, and yeah, this is one of the bits I cut my teeth on. And it gets even sadder. This is the alternator end cap from that car, and if you look at these little anti-rotation features in here, yeah, I designed those too, so I'm hoping to hell the electrics are still working on this car, but we shall see. Even some bits of switchgear, so half an indicator stock, and yeah, this was also one of the bits I was responsible for. So, really proud of the car. I really love these things, and it was actually my first company car, was exactly this car in that bronze color. I was 26, and yeah, I did some things in that car that I probably shouldn't admit to even now. So really, really good memories of the car and of Nissan at the time. But if I put aside my own personal feelings towards these cars, was it actually any good? Well, the answer is yes. So Nissan at the time, late 80s, early 90s, was a really interesting company. It was really on the up and up, a little bit like the Korean car makers maybe 10 years ago, or even like the Chinese car makers coming now with a bunch of new technology. Nissan was really producing some excellent products. This was the era of the 300ZX, 200SX, and this Primera. So technically it's a really interesting car. The front suspension, it's a full wishbone setup. It's actually the same geometry or the same basic architecture as you get on the 300ZX or even the Skyline R32 of the time. The rear axle, also really interesting. The previous Primera, the P10, had a multi-link setup, and this car has a version of a DD-on with something called a Scott Russell linkage, if you want to get really geeky. But the rear axle is really interesting, and that explains some of the car's excellent ride and handling, and it really did do both well. Would you believe there are only 8 of these cars on the road? So a few years ago they were a common sight. There are now only 8 of them which have current MOTs. And hopefully, Johnny, thanks for the work you've done this week, soon there'll be 9.
So let's just run through this. We've got spark, we've got a free engine, we've got oil in it, we've got coolant in it, and there's no alarm going off and there's no immobiliser pane. So I think we're good to go. Go on then, Neil. I don't want to do it in case it fires up and just idles perfectly. It's your car.
Okay.
It's your nostalgic trip. I'm just here for the ride. Do you reckon it will?
I'm a bit nervous now.
Well, I mean, I'm always... I don't know what's going on with the fuel pump. Let's just hope it's dead silent and beautifully operating. Seriously? Wow, that was instant.
Oh. Throttle stuck.
Wow, that did stick.
Yeah.
Goodness. Oh, hang on.
Oh, it's the cable,
What's
isn't
that,
it?
Look.
Let me
I can spray some lubricant in that on that. I'll just spray a bit of this in. I'm going to Woolard while I'm watching this engine. I just feel like it's the right thing to do. Ooh.
That's the alternator lights on. I think that's the alternator.
I was going to say it's coming from down where the belt is.
The alternator light has come on.
Has it?
Yeah.
It's not slipping though. That's so smooth.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Sounds really nice. I mean, ignore the squeal. It's that belt is old, and of course the alternator's old. So smooth. Whoa.
That's the air conditioning.
Is it? Yeah.
That was the air conditioning pump.
We just had a load of like stuff coming out of the engine. Do you want to see if it will drive?
I think we need to wash it first.
Oh yeah, because
see.
you can't see anything.
But yes,
Yeah.
assuming it stops.
Yeah, just there's a pillar in the way, which is a little bit irritating. But anyway, this car's just got a load of fake tan on it.
Ready?
Ready when you're. Can you actually see anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stand where the pillar is. Sounds brilliant. Yeah. Now straight. I reckon straight. Yeah. Right hand down. Yeah. It's so smooth. Do the brakes work?
Yeah.
Bloody hell, there's no binding. We haven't got any running water, we haven't got any electricity, but we do have a cordless pressure washer and a couple of buckets of water. So we're going to snow foam the Primera GT. It's been the first time we've cleaned it in how many years?
Well, since 2013.
So first clean of in at least a decade, right? Let's go. So now that we've given it a quick clean, I mean, we could spend a couple of hours detailing it, which it deserves, but it looks a lot better. This is what I wanted to look at, because this is completely 90s, isn't it? So the GT from memory, Neal, half leather, half fabric seats, gear knob that has aluminium bits on it, and an aluminium surround.
Yeah, so the gear knob is from a later LE model, GT LE.
Okay.
And yeah, the early GTs were half leather, and then the later ones, the LE models, were full leather.
And then you got the 4-spoke steering wheel, which is two-tone leather.
Yep.
Bit mouldy, because it's obviously been sat in a barn for a while. But I can see a few mouse droppings, but what I'm glad to report is I can't see too much fabric damage. In fact, that's wear and tear from you, obviously, and your parents doing the mileage. Everything else actually looks all right, doesn't it? And the seats are a great shape. I forgot how cool they were. Sunroof, air conditioning, all the standard on the GT, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
And CD changer in the boot.
Yeah, standard CD changer.
See, how old were you? 21 when you got this?
Yes. Yeah.
This was a weapon. What a cool car. Fast and comfortable. Yeah, CD changer control. So you never even changed the head unit.
No.
Still a Nissan head unit. It's pretty rare
And
now.
the sound was really good on it from memory.
I love these clocks. So that's grey with red detail and orange needles. 120,000 on the VDO gauges. Look at that. It all works. So we thought, let's take it for a drive, because like it's a fully operational car, despite the fact that we've just woken it up from hibernation. This is private property. The clutch is holding out. It got up to working temperature fine. I've only ever driven around in a barn find once before, and I had the fuel tank on my knees, so I was a bit worried about that. And it didn't have brakes. Whereas this has brakes. I can't believe it. Everything works. It really works. What a great car. These were what, like 18 grand or something when they were new?
I think it was about 18 and a half, yeah, that was the list price.
So quite an expensive car for an 18-year-old, right?
Yeah, and I was quite lucky really, because I had the P10, which I bought when it was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I worked for a company, I was an apprentice mechanical engineer, and our lottery syndicate won some money on the lottery.
Really?
I think it was, from memory, it was about 313,000 between 40 of us, so we got about 8,000 each. And
It's the radio's on.
yeah.
The radio is on. Yeah.
Yeah,
So your company won some a thing on the lottery. There was a syndicate that you were part of.
yeah,
You suddenly came into about 8 grand
yeah.
out of nowhere, and
So
you thought,
I've got to have a new car. I was car fanatic.
that's brilliant. If I'd said to you when you were 21, in 26 years' time, you're still going to have that in a barn in the middle of nowhere, you will have considered scrapping it or giving it away, but you didn't,
Yeah,
and you're going to get it back on the road, and it's probably going to have to stay with you now for the rest of your life.
I think so. Yeah, I couldn't bear to let it go to anyone else. So
Look at that. A pheasant's just walked out in front of us. He's had to do a very mild emergency stop, and the brakes work.
But
Nothing's binding. Matt Neal would be proud. In fact, Matt Neal is proud. I know he is. I think this is the most modern barn find I've done on the Late Break Show. I did do a 2002 Mini, but I spent most of the time on the classic Mini that was in the same garage. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link above my head. So this is probably the newest barn find, but I think I'm going to be doing more and more of this era. Late 90s, early 2000s cars. Time to find yourself some CDs and tapes, because still got the cassette deck and the CD. So imagine that combo.
I'm sure I've got some Phil Collins cassettes or something in the loft.
It's cool. So if you know of any cars that you think will be interesting for me to come and dig out on the Late Break Show, they can be old stuff, they can be relatively recent stuff, although I say recent, this car's 25, 26 years old. Get in touch with me. There's an email address in the description. Send me pictures, details of the backstory, anything heartfelt like that, and I'd love to hear more. Thank you, and thanks to you, Neal, for letting me come and have a look at your one-owner Primera GT.
Thanks for getting it running. Great.